Begin this morning with breaking news. In just the last few minutes, we've learned new details about the world's battle plan against the terror group ISIS. A number of Arab countries have offered military assistance, including airstrikes, as part of the coalition fight. That's according to Secretary of State John Kerry in an interview on CBS's Face the Nation. He said there are some that are clearly prepared to take action. That news comes hours after another video of another Western hostage being beheaded by ISIS. This time, the terror group's victim is David Haines, a British aid worker. In a moment, I want to talk about whether media outlets are doing ISIS a favor with blanket coverage of these videos. But first, let's go straight to London to CNN's senior international correspondent, Nick Robertson. Nick, what did Prime Minister Cameron say about this morning?
Yeah, he said that David Haines was a British hero. He said the British people and David Haines' family should be proud of what he did, proud of the humanitarian work. But he also said the British people need to understand that this is a fanatical organization that has planned, continues to plan attacks against this country. He said the people of Britain simply could not bury their heads, if you will, and ignore this. This is what he said.
There is no option of keeping our heads down that would make us safe. The problem would merely get worse, as it has done over recent months, not just for us, but for Europe and for the world. We cannot just walk on by if we are to keep this country safe. We have to confront this menace. Step by step, we must drive back, dismantle, and ultimately destroy ISIL.
Now, David Cameron said that he supported the United States in their decision for airstrikes inside Syria, but he stopped short of using the same language himself, saying that Britain would do that. But you do hear in what he's saying, reaching out to the British people here, that he is, if you will, trying to build support for that position. But at the moment, very clear, no boots on the ground, supporting the United States in airstrikes, but not committing Britain to the same, Brian.
David Haines' face is on the cover of the New York Daily News here in New York this morning, the knife up to his throat. Is the same kind of image appearing on the cover of the tabloids there in Britain?
Absolutely, it certainly does. And everyone in this country knows that the man who's the executioner there has a British accent, seems to be from London or the East End of London. Authorities here, David Cameron last week, told me that they were continuing to try to figure out who this man was. And he has said publicly, absolutely, the people responsible will be brought to justice. It is front and center of the news here today, Brian.
Thank you, Nick, for joining us this morning. It's clear to me that the press is handing ISIS a grotesque form of free publicity every time one of these videos is uploaded to the internet. But is there any alternative to that? Well, joining me here at the desk is Jeff Greenfield, formerly a political analyst for CBS and CNN, now a columnist for the Daily Beast, and also here Dan Rather, a former anchor and managing editor of the CBS Evening News, now the host of Dan Rather Presents on Access TV. Thank you both for being here this morning.
Thank you for having us, Brian.
I wanted to ask a couple of viewers what they thought. I want to read a couple of tweets from viewers when I posed this question this morning. And the first one here from Allison says, she points out people are very, very skeptical of what the news media tells them. She says, quote, you can't just report it and not show at least a still image. You have to show proof. But then here's a comment from Anthony. He writes, the alternative is to refuse to share the video because by sharing the video, you're helping spread terror and fear. Dan, I almost always want to err on the side of showing more. I think the alternative is to risk sanitizing the news, the world we live in. Where do you come down on this?
Well, it depends on the hour of the day. It's a difficult call, but I think we have to see clearly that this is the first social media war. In the way the Vietnam War was the first television war, this is the first social media war. That ISIS has proved to be very adept, very talented, if you will. You always hope that evil won't be, in ratcheting up the hysteria, ratcheting up the image of their influence far beyond what their actual military capabilities are. We have to understand, the media and the country has to understand, that a lot of this is about the psychology of propaganda. Think about it. 3 beheadings, and by the way, I say in my own mind, are we certain that they've actually beheaded these people? But assuming that they have, that 3 beheadings are enough to move American public opinion, change our foreign policy, and take this nation to war.
That's a point that Fareed Zakaria made in our last hour, saying nothing has changed about ISIS except these videos.
This is, to me, the most troublesome part of this. First of all, we should note that nobody has shown the most graphic of pictures,
right.
At least nobody except the most fringe part of the media.
It's accessible
for understandable
online, but
reasons.
even some websites that usually show this stuff have said they're not going to show it.
But the most important thing is this. If you're asking the intelligence agencies or experts, how big a threat to the United States is ISIS, there's a lot of debate. Can they, do they have power beyond where they've established a physical presence? the pictures seem to tell us something different. It's what I would call emotional knowledge. Look, they gruesomely killed 2 Americans and a Briton. And I think what happens is there's a tendency to, well, if they can do that, then they can sneak across the Mexican border and spread Ebola virus, which at least one public official has suggested. And it tends to force, I think, our policymakers into taking decisions that they might not take absent the emotional punch of those pictures. They tend to maybe say more than what reality lets them say.
And where the media, and I include myself in this criticism, where we're short, we don't talk about context, background, history. We just push the pictures forward. And having said to you before, I'm ambivalent about it. I generally want to err on the side. Listen, my job is to put the information out there, others decide. But your conscience, when you say let your news conscience be your guide, says, this is really helping other guys. But we have to understand that the shock of the beheadings will begin to fade a little bit as time goes along. And ISIS, smart as they are, and they're very smart with their slick videos, I would argue that they're in the same league in the social media war context as Hitler was in the 1930s in their use of propaganda, that they'll go to something else for shock value when the shock of the beheadings begins to fade off. So we need to be thinking about that.
So are we at the point then where we shouldn't be broadcasting even still images from these videos?
I don't see how you can put that genie back in the bottle. Back toward the end of the 19th century, William Marcy Tweed, who ran Tammany Hall, was said to have said about Thomas Nast cartoons, stop the damn pictures. I don't care what people write, because my constituents can't read, but those damn pictures they understand. And we can see much of our history, Civil War, Vietnam, images have had an enormous influence. What I think is useful, or think would be necessary, is to find some kind of, let's call it social media literacy. We are able to put these pictures side by side with other arguments. And my big concern, I saw this in the Iran hostage crisis, we see it over and over again, the visceral images overwhelm the rational abstract analysis.
So it's not about whether we're going to show the images or not, it's about how we react as viewers to them. Dan, you were going to say something?
Well, we're going to say something. I think it was a quote from Hitler himself, if not from one on his staff, who said, those who control the images control the race. This was in the context of the 1930s. And ISIS understands that those that control the images on social media will control public opinion about this. Now, but we have to stretch out for the long pull. Let's not talk about what the president's declared war. One, if it's a war, we should all be in. There's no way to half-arse it with war. But that's a whole other subject. For those of us in media, I think Jeff is spot on. Context, history. We need to put these things in. I don't believe in self-censorship, but I do think that there's such a thing as the media overcovering something. For example, and let's come to the point, CNN 15 straight hours on this.
I do wonder, I've been rereading one of my favorite books. It's called The Culture of Fear. It came out in the late 90s, and it has this line in the intro, television news programs survive on scares. I don't know if everyone would agree on that, but I do wonder about a structural issue about cable news, which is by covering one beheading for so many hours, Jeff?
It stands for a greater, it seems to stand for something more than it is. I believe it seems to say...
ISIS has beheaded so many Muslims on camera. It's accessible on YouTube still. For some reason, YouTube doesn't take those videos down as quickly as it takes down the Western hostages. But those videos are online. They're not covered as extensively.
No, and I think that's as simple an explanation as what happens to us, whoever us is, always counts more than what happens to them. But the idea of inflating a single event to define American policy, to get us into a potential war whose unintended consequences we may not have thought out, to force policymakers, as I think the Iranian hostage pictures did to Jimmy Carter, to make that front and center of an entire foreign policy, is what the danger is. And the answer, I agree with Dan and I agree with you, you can't not show them, but you have to immediately say, this is what it means. And to your point about CNN or other cable nets, when you loop those pictures over and over and over, I think that has an impact. And I've always thought, even when I worked here, that CNN and the other cable networks should think long and hard before filling the camera with these images.
And one of the assumptions, of course, is that people aren't watching the way that I might be watching. People are watching for a few minutes at a time. They come in, they come out, and they see what's going on.
And I think it's very important to understand that these images and this propaganda, the social media propaganda that ISIS is putting out, is not, despite what we may think, designed only for the West. It's accomplishing what Osama bin Laden, and Al-Qaeda could not, that these images are a tremendous recruiting tool for them. It's a tremendous tool for gathering money. This is directed as much as anything. It is directed toward the West of the United States, but it's also directed toward the civil war between the Sunnis and the Shiites.
I'm thinking about how judiciously we've used these images in the last few minutes, and I'm glad we have, because we can't, I think your point is right, Jeff, you can't put that genie in the back in the bottle, but we can control our responses to the images and our emotional responses
and
to
to
them.
immediately try to ask, look, the question about whether ISIS is a clear and present danger to the United States is a serious question. That's the question that needs debating before we take perhaps irreversible action. And so when those pictures are on, it would be really helpful if somebody else would come in and say, here's what this means and here's what it doesn't mean. Here's what we think it may mean for the United States. Here's what we think it may not mean.
You can hear all three of us, I think, struggling with this balance, isn't it? Jeff Greenfield and Dan Rather, thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you for having us, Brian.